Okay, all right. Hi, Brian.
Hey Terry, how you doing?
I'm great, and thank you for making time for this. I appreciate it. I was just thinking, I'm going to introduce you in a minute. I have your bio here, but I don't know. I think it was about 2 years ago, you were gracious enough to join a panel of former students of mine that we called an early career panel.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd fit on that panel anymore. You need your own thing.
Yeah.
And that's just a testament to something that was always clear to me working with you in class was how focused you were, how how clear your North Star of really what I care about, success and excellence and getting out there. And you're hungry and you've made it happen and you're blowing up. And I couldn't be more happy for you and more proud that I was part of your journey and that we continue to connect. Yeah, um, you are a great model in so many ways. So let me just get some of the stats out. Brian Michael Smith, and are you now just calling yourself Brian Michael? What are you calling yourself?
I go by Brian Michael Smith, that's what
Okay,
you I got him.
all of them. You got three. Okay. Brian Michael Smith is known for his groundbreaking performances on television and his advocacy for trans representation in media. His role as a transgender police officer in Ava DuVernay's Queen Sugar launched him into a series of high-profile roles, including political strategist Pierce Williams in Showtime's The L Word Generation Q. Smith became the first out black trans man in a series regular role on network television when he was cast as firefighter Paul Strickland in Fox's 911 Lone Star. And we worked on that. That was fun. Other appearances include NBC's Chicago PD, HBO's Girls, and Showtime's thriller Homeland. In addition to public speaking, he advocates through his art and supports trans narratives in television and film by participating in projects such as Sam Feder's documentary Disclosure, Trans Lives on Screen, which was released this past June on Netflix. When asked by the LA Times about a hat he owns that says Transtastic, he said, "It represents what I want to do with my life's work, combining my experience and visibility to improve the lives of other people and bring their often overlooked stories to the media forefront." Please, everybody, and maybe you can unmute yourselves for a moment. Let us welcome Brian Michael Smith.
Woo! God, hello.
Zoom sometimes is like doing stand up without an audience. And so it's nice to hear the voices. Yeah. It gets a little chaotic, but it's nice. I'm going to just put you in speaker view and I'm going to pin you so I can just look at your face the whole time. So I asked you before where you're calling in from. So why don't you tell everybody?
I am calling from not hot and humid Los Angeles, California. Kind of excited to be here. Like it's a place I've always wanted to go.
Yeah.
Just out on my patio.
Yeah. And have you moved out there permanently? Do you still have a place in New York?
We still have a place in New York. Like the original plan before 2020 hijacked everything was after I finished filming and my wife went off for a little bit. We were going to make the complete move from New York to Los Angeles. But I got her out here earlier because of COVID. We just kind of been holed up together here, and we still have to like pack up the apartment in New York.
Right.
I'm going to stick around out here for a few more years.
Yeah. We were speaking before and you gave me permission to share this story, and I'm just remembering another detail about it. So um, when Brian studied with me, uh, I did not know he was trans because he was not out as trans, at least in our class, maybe with other people. Although if I'd been thoughtful and smart about it, I might have put two and two together only because I'm now remembering your job was working at the 13th Street LGBT Center uh, without the Q back then. And you were pretty committed to that population. Um, but otherwise, I didn't know. And then you, a couple years after graduating, maybe, uh, reached out to me and said you wanted to get together, which I was always happy to do, and you came out to me, which, even as I think about it, just it gives me chills, because it represents such a meaningful trust and kind of expanding of our relationship. And um, we just talked about how to go forward in that, which really I'm not the person to advise you, but I was honored to have the conversation. And boy, have you been steady on since then. And what I was saying to you before we invited all the people in was, probably if I have a trans student now, they would be out. And that would be part of the conversation in the interview process. Not necessarily, but it has been my experience. And so I was wondering if you could speak to um, how you feel about all that, and what you were saying about invisibility and now visibility. I think that's a really interesting sort of entry point into things.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you like remembering that and sharing. It was a really big moment for me, as someone that I came to respect and admire, through our process of training together. I always felt like you were somebody that I could trust. And I was at this point in my life, my career, where I was like, what kind of actor do I want to be? And like, what kind of work do I want to do? And what can I bring to the world that, isn't already there? What's the mark that I'm going to like make? And when I was first in class, I felt like I just want to focus on being the best actor that I can be. And I felt like I never really had the training that would allow me to do that. And when I got into the class, we started doing all this personal work. I started to realize that in order to be the best actor I could be, I'd have to like really understand myself and confront things within me, blocks that I had, and like where the blocks came from, get into therapy and start to piece that together and like process it, and then start to work with it and give myself permission to work with these parts of myself that, I've kind of closed off, either as a survival tactic or because I just didn't have the room or skills to really work through it. And I found that through acting, I could kind of work through some things in doing so, but I just needed to figure out how and understand what that would mean for me in terms of a career. Because, early on when I started, I think it was like 2011, 2010, there were no real trans roles. There certainly weren't any trans masculine roles. So it's like I would be coming out for what? To just be seen as this one thing that no one seems to have a story for? Or until I write these stories or like get with someone where I could like make these stories and write it, then I could do it. Whereas like I need to get the practice in first. And I want to get my feet into the industry and like work. So I didn't want to do that. And then, what's interesting about where we're at now is like you're saying, like in your new classes, people, there's enough information out. There's enough people who are out and who are visible, who have the language. So, there is an ability or freedom for people to be out, for trans people to, take class now and, talk about that on the very first day and have the confidence to do that and to know that they can continue to do other roles and to explore, their art. And I feel like I went from a generation that was just before that point. I transitioned like in the late 90s, early 2000s. And at that time, successful transition meant, becoming invisible and like fully assimilating in society or like fully transitioning from one to the other. And now we're starting to understand that there is no one to the other. There's a spectrum and you can kind of fall where you want on that spectrum. It's kind of up to you. And you can change where you fit on that spectrum, per day, per hour or whatever. And so there's a freedom that is available now that wasn't available to me then. And, I'm really, really thankful that there has been this shift where people can be out and we can really see richly developed trans characters in work. And we can see trans actors taking on roles that are of the trans experience, that are like authentically of the trans experience, because either they are listening to the actor or because they have trans writers in the room or somebody in the production team who has something beyond their imagination to pull from when it comes to exploring trans experiences. But then also, I can still play roles that are not necessarily trans-based, and that, there's room for that. And now, my hope is that we can continue in that direction because, I was playing, cis characters beforehand, before I came out to you and before, I came out professionally, with Clean Sugar. And now I've played like 3 very impactful and I think important, diverse trans masculine characters. And I'm really happy about that. But I want to make sure that I'm still able to play some of the other roles that I feel like are important, that explore the other aspects of my life and experience that I want to shed more attention to, or just be a part of the conversation. I'm a Black trans man. And so some of the roles I want to do explore is my Blackness. Some of the roles I want to do explore my transness. Some I want to do just explore masculinity or my idea about it, you know?
We're just being human.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's great. You're so comfortable. I mean, that's what comes across is you really feel, I can't say what it's like to be inside you, but you come across as so comfortable in your skin.
And I feel like a lot of that had to do with what I was able to discover about myself through the work that we were doing in class and beyond. I feel like each role that I took on helped me understand how I was looking at myself and regarding myself. And some of it was great, and then some of it was like, "Ooh, this isn't helping." And like taking the time to let go of the things that weren't helpful anymore, or like taking the time to like just hold the things that aren't helpful, but some part of me still needed, you know, until I like worked through it with therapy or through conversations with my wife or like, you know, my mother, or just, you know, just coming to like be okay with whatever truth is inside of me that I had to overlook or tamp down or downplay. And I feel like I'm in a place now where I realize it may seem like it helps to do that, but in the long run it doesn't. And the sooner I just deal with it, the things that I want come.
Yeah, that's great. So I have a few questions for you, and then I think, Justin, we can open it up to some questions from the people out there, because I really just want, it's really for them to meet you and to learn from you and share your inspiration. I wonder how you might talk about the impact on you of what some people are calling this double pandemic that we're in right now. The virus, and then we could say the virus of social injustice and systemic racism that the George Floyd moment has really brought into the forefront of our consciousness. Not that it was ever going to leave, but it's something seems to have been really amplified right now. And I'm wondering how that's been for you, and how hopeful you are, and whether it affects the kind of stories you want to tell, and just what has this time been like for you?
Oh man, my like not understanding, but I guess like my experience of this time and understanding of it has kind of been on a wave for sure. Like when the pandemic first happened, there was kind of like all right, we're going to get through this. You know, it should take a few weeks, but we're going to come together, you know, as a country and kind of knock this thing out, and it'll be fine. And then as we kind of kept the amount of lockdown kept getting pushed back and getting pushed back, you know, I started to, you know, kind of worry about like, what is this world that we live in, you know? And like, I think the forced solitude really, and with, especially with like no social media, there's no sports to talk about. There's just so little to distract me from, you know, whatever things are kind of unprocessed, you know, either for myself, like personally, and then just like about the world. Like it was full steam ahead, you know, up until March and April. And I had a lot of time to just kind of like sit down and let the things that were wrong with the world just really affect me, and me listen to myself about how it was affecting me. You know, I felt like I'm really doing something with my art and my work, which was true, but people were still getting murdered. Black people are still getting pulled over for no reason and like, you know, brutalized by the police. We still have this sort of historical amnesia that, you know, contributes to this, where people don't realize that the reason why things are the way they are based on how things were yesterday and the day before and like the 50 years before that. And we've never really dealt with these things. And I don't know, I think not being able to hide from or look away from someone being choked to death for 8.5 minutes just broke something in me, and like and everybody else was like, this is unnecessary and this has got to stop, and we can't keep throwing up the same excuses and like the same arguments about why it should be okay and hoping that it's not going to go away until everybody sees how wrong it is and everybody says we're not going to do this, and stop relying on Black people to like take responsibility for state sanctioned violence. when it's not us. And for everybody, you know, who is complicit in it because they find some sort of benefit, whether it's a sense of safety or whatever, who find some sort of benefit from this sort of white supremacy that authorizes this state-sanctioned violence. You know what I mean? And I feel like we couldn't look away, and we didn't have work to pull us away, to keep us out of the streets and to keep us out of getting involved. At least like for me, is I didn't have anything to do to say like, I can't go to this protest. I can't show up physically, because I feel like I was showing up artistically, but I'm like, this is a moment where, you know, in the 60s when the civil rights movement was happening, I always wondered like, you know, what would I have been doing in that time? And like, I'm like, I don't want to be the person who's just sitting on my couch and like hoping that things are going to work out. And I could go show up because I'm having all these feelings to myself, and I can't use my work to do anything right now. So I'm going to use my body. And for the first time in a long time, I really felt that pull to get out. And I feel like that was reflective of what a lot of people were feeling, where it's just like, we can't look away, and we can't pretend we're not feeling what we're feeling anymore. Like, I think the pandemic sort of sensitized our sense of humanity and our sense of connection to other humans, and like our need for connection to other humans. And when we see other humans being attacked like that, being murdered like that, like, I don't know, I just felt pulled to do something more than I had done before to really contribute to the change. And so I feel like I went from a place of just kind of being very self-focused to a place of being more world-focused, and then more like direct action focused. And then, you know, feeling like sometimes like fatigue, where it's like I'm out and I'm here and we're protesting for days. The cycle is happening where they recognize there's a problem, there's an incendiary event. People respond to that event. The response, the anger comes out, the frustration comes out, that should come out. And then to sort of undermine it and help us get back to reality, they demonize the people who are speaking out. They demonize the people who are like protesting. They're demonizing the righteous anger so that they can then criminalize it, so that they can pull people away, break up the groups, jail people, and then get back to the status quo. And like that cycle was like, it was playing out now. And like, it's exhausting, you know? So then going back to a place of like, well, how else can I support? If I can't be out on the streets every day, if I can't, you know, create with my work right now, then okay, I can donate. Okay, I can share something. And then, so that's what I feel like I've been going through right now, is just finding ways to be involved and finding ways to hold other people accountable, and to make people who I feel like, well, not make, but to really challenge people who I feel like are aware of what's going on, to move from their place of comfort, and to help contribute to the direct action.
I hope that people listening are getting as excited and inspired as I am. And I think even if you have your picture off, you can put a thumbs up, because I'm feeling a lot of stuff from you, Brian. And I love how articulate you are. Yeah, I'm seeing gestures, claps, and thumbs up. Because you are really bringing it. You are testifying. What are you doing in this time for self-care, for taking care of Brian?
I meditate. I mean, I think that's one of the things. Like, there was a moment where when things were kind of coming apart, and I'm on one coast, my wife is on another coast, and you know, I could either go to New York or even have her come here. And I'm like, come here, because we can go outside. There's nature, there's the beach, there's sunshine, and there's a little more space. And I feel like going outside, connecting with nature, and just being present in my body has really helped, and like finding different ways to do that. So whether it's meditation, working out, going for a hike, that's been great. I try to write, you know, from time to time, but just really getting in my body has been really, really helpful. And choosing very carefully when I'm going to engage in media and the news. Like, I don't want to be cut off from things. Like, I don't want to be completely tuned out. So I want to be aware, but there's like a steady stream of garbage right now.
Yeah.
And I don't care, you know, so just being very selective about like the news sources that I engage in, and the social media feeds that I engage in as well, just to kind of get like a full perspective, and then just not being on it all the time. So I like, you know, me and my wife been doing things like, we learned how to play chess. So like playing chess for hours, doing like crossword puzzles, just really trying to find ways to get offline in a way that, you know, feels like gets me out of my, like, out of the like craziness of the world.
Yeah.
out of like the repetitive thoughts in my head, and like, because I get frustrated, like there's so much I can be doing, I should be doing this and this, and it's like, chill, so find ways to chill by either getting embodied or like getting engaged with another human has been really.
Tell us about your wife. You speak about her. I don't know much about your wife.
You don't know about my wife? She's in
Well,
there with my mom right now. She's wonderful. I met her in 2009. I was working at an elementary school, and I was teaching media literacy to the kids there. And she came in my second year, and I just thought she was the bee's knees. And talk about persistence. Like I was trying to holler at her for a while, and she was like, "No, I don't date coworkers." I'm like, "I'm not a coworker. I'm an actor. Like I work in an after-school program. Don't worry about it." I wore her down. I'm persistent. It worked out, and she went on a date with me, and the rest is history. But she works at the school that we met at. She's still there, and she's now the assistant principal at that school. And she's come out. She's been a wonderful, wonderful partner to have. For me, it's like I'm very like not head in the clouds, but I guess I'm a dreamer, and I pursue it. So it's been great to have somebody here who can like keep me rooted in love and to help me realize, because for me, a challenge that would come up for me like in class and just in work was like me not feeling a sense of like rooted worthiness sometimes, and so having her there like really reminds me, and like she does a great job reminding me like I'm worthy of love, and I just well love, for me. So no matter, and I don't have to do anything. She's like, it's just you. So even if I don't achieve whatever I've set out to achieve, and even if I make mistakes or mess up, she just loves me. And like, it's just so worth, like, it just makes me realize like, oh, I'm worthy. I'm a lovable person. Okay.
So I have to ask you about someone else who you used to do some work about in class, which is your mom.
Yeah.
Tell us about her and your relationship a little bit, because she feels very important.
Yeah, she's here right now. Her birthday was on Saturday, so I brought her out to Michigan. So they're in there having ladybug time while I'm out here. So my mom is great. She's a single mom. She and her sisters raised me and my cousins as siblings, but it was basically like me and her. And I feel like it was challenging for her raising me because I had a lot of energy, and I was very different than she was. And just being like a trans child in the 80s when no one knew what that was and all that. So I think she took it personal sometimes that I was involved in things that like she wasn't interested in, and that my rejection of like the things that she wanted to buy for me and the gifts and the clothes that she wanted, like I would reject that because it wasn't me. And like I think we by the time I got to be in like middle school and high school, we were like butting heads.
How did she feel about you wanting to play football?
Oh man. So I didn't make the choice easier though, I was a very wild and energetic, rambunctious kid, and I was always very athletic. And when I was in middle school, I wanted to play Pee Wee League football with my friend. And she's like, "No, you can't play football." I'm like, you gotta let me play. Like, you can't let me not play. And, I'm like, you can't let me not play. And if the reason you let me not play is because I'm a girl, then like, that can't be the only reason. And she was like, she didn't want to do that. She didn't want to say that. So she's like, okay, fine. So finally, after like years of pleading, she let me play. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to play. It's going to be great. I can't wait till summer. But that winter, I went sledding on a snow day, and I broke my leg horribly. So bad that like I was out for the whole year, and like I missed the age cutoff to play Pee Wee League football. So I was like done for. And she was like, well, okay, it's closed. But then I'm like, well, no, I'm healed now. I can play high school football. She's like, no, you can't play. You're going to break your legs. It's going to be bad. And I like kind of hit her with the same argument. She's like, well, I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to get in the way. I'm not going to support it. And so I was like, fine. I made my way. I got on the city bus. And I went to the school. And like, I think it was because I was in Ann Arbor. It was a progressive town. And I think they just kind of figured football will weed you out. So you can try out. And if you make it, you make it. If you don't, we can't say we kept you from playing. But I ended up playing like all 4 years and playing varsity and whatnot, and enjoyed it. But she was like, what is this, like, of all the things? And then like I did track in the spring, and she was like, oh great, you're on the girls track team, what harm can happen there? And I'm like, I'm a pole vaulter. So I could put her through a lot of trials, and like it took some time. Like it wasn't until like I went away to college, and we kind of had some space where we started to, like, really get into our own identities. And like I came back, I'm like, this is who I am, I'm trans. Like she had to like work her way around that. And it was difficult for her, and it was difficult for me, like processing how she felt about it and her initial like rejection of it. But then we got to a point where like one of my aunts passed away, and everybody in the family was just like, we love each other, right? Okay. And let's just work from that. And from that point, like we've had like a great relationship because we were able to see each other for who exactly we are, and like helping each other grow. You know, like she's tells me like she's inspired by the things that I do, and I'm inspired by the things that she does, and we've been able to really, you know, grow this real relationship with the actual people we are once we're able to let go of the ideas that we held about each other for such a long time.
You were just dropping bombs here, my friend, and I'm really happy to have you. Let's talk a little bit about art making, and then I'm going to open it up. Justin, are we getting any questions?
People can feel free to start chatting them in. Just find Justin and chat to me.
Great. Okay. So I'm just wondering, have you done anything in this time to stay sharp? Are you talking about projects? Are there any things you can reveal to us? We were talking just before everyone came in about when you're supposed to go back to work on Lone Star. What have you been doing in this time to stay sharp, and what advice do you have for the folks who are watching, and what are you excited about coming down the line?
Yeah. I mean, the first few months was just getting used to the new normal. So I thinking that, oh, it'll be over in like, you know, a couple months, it'll be fine. And then realizing, no, it's not. This is going to drag out. So I started, you know, reading more because I had the time and I was trying to like get away from the screens. And I noticed that the more like I would read the books, the more like this, like that imagination would just kind of light up and coming up with these ideas and connecting in a way to things that just watching it doesn't allow. So like, you know, reading books, reading scripts, and then like I started to feel the urge to like play and like, you know, perform again. And there's these virtual, they can do it virtually. So like I did a couple like Zoom readings of screenplays and scripts. That's been really fun. I've been part of this Make It Gay series that this woman Gabby Dunn puts on. We'll read like screenplays from things like The Social Network or The Breakfast Club, and we'll cast it with, you know, trans or, you know, characters of color, just like, you know, cross-gender casting and stuff like that. So that's been really fun, you know, taking things like turning on its head and playing characters I never would have thought of playing before. And,
What was the most fun one you did?
The Breakfast Club. I played I got to play the jock on The Breakfast Club, and I had such a good time with that, you know, just in general. And I think we're trying to either do The Matrix or The Hangover next, so we'll see about that. But that's been great. And oh no, Ocean's 11 was also really fun because I got to do this like crazy British accent. I was playing a Don Cheadle's character, Basher, and like I just went to town with that, you know. So that was really fun. And I was taking a class with this guy Anthony Abeson for like on camera auditions and whatnot for a few months when I was in New York, and he was doing an online class, so I'd pop into that like just to get used to like exercising those like audition muscles. When you get like here's 3 pages, make something happen, come up with some choices. So just trying to find ways to stay sharp like that. But reading has been great. And then, you know, we have time now. So watching a lot of television, and like, you know, I have all the streamers. So I've seen like some really good like television and
Like what? What are you loving?
I'm loving Rami is great. It comes on at Hulu. And like, I would love it because I know I have Muslim friends. I know Muslim people, but I've never been in a mosque, and I don't know their relationship to religion. I've been to church, and I have Jewish friends, and I've been, you know, to temple, but it was really great to be pulled into that world and see the side of that space, and then seeing how, even though it's a different religion, he's navigating similar things that I'm navigating, you know. So I thought that was beautiful. Anna Kendrick's Love Life, which I wasn't even interested in watching, but it's also really good in terms of showing how relationships just they all kind of knock off each other, and they change how you see yourself and who you are and how you become. That I thought that was beautiful. And I May Destroy You.
Unbelievable.
That's the kind of storytelling I want to do. You know what I mean? When I watch stuff like that, it's just that personal, that visceral, that real. It's just, ooh, you know? So things like that, they keep me inspired and like make me want to act and like get up and do something or write something from my own experience, for sure.
That's great. I have one more question for you, and then Justin, are you getting any questions?
Yes, many.
That's great. Okay. What advice? We have some people here who are just started the summer intensive. We have some people here who are just finishing up their first year. We have some graduates here. So different folks who most have a relationship to this training, which can be hard when you're in the middle of it. I remember when I was a student at Bill Esper's, Some days I would want to just run in the park because I was full of joy, and others I'd want to jump off a bridge because it's hard, and it's hard to keep the faith. So what advice would you have about the work that we do in this training specifically as someone who made it through?
What you are experiencing while you're doing the training and in class is what you're going to experience in work at some point in some way. So you're getting trained on how you respond and react to things, and like what your process is going to be. And it's going to be your process like throughout. So even though you feel like running away, like sometimes I'll get a script and I'm working and I'll feel like running away. So I feel like class taught me how to know that that was part of the process. This is what's going to come up, and just know how to work with that and the stuff that comes up. So it, you know, and there's going to be things that just click and come to you easy, and you're going to do it and you're going to feel great and it's amazing, like at your job. And there's things that are going to come up in your job that are horrible. And so this is a good opportunity for you to learn how to work with the stuff that comes up when you're doing your work.
Great. And one last follow-up. You've mentioned therapy. I think you know that I'm a big proponent of therapy for actors. Do you agree?
Yes. First of all, everybody should do therapy,
Yeah.
but particularly us, because our instrument is ourselves and our feelings and our responses to things. And you got to know why you are responding the way to things. A, so that you can work with them, and B, just so that you know. Like, I
Great.
feel like I'm a better person because the things that came up in class, I had to go work on them with a therapist.
Yeah.
You know, the work that I did has made me a better person.
Yeah.
Period.
Great. This is so good. So Justin, how should we do it? Do you want to just pick some folks and they can turn their video on and ask Brian themselves? Is that a good thing to do, or?
That sounds good.
Okay, so I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Ray White has a question. Ray, if you'd like to turn on your video and sound, you may.
Sorry, was not prepared to be on camera, but
You look good, Ray.
so first I wanted to say thank you for saying that you want to run away sometimes, because I feel that. And then I also was just really curious what your first job was, and like how was the audition process leading up to that?
Like my first paid acting job?
Yes.
What was my first paid acting job? I guess my first on-camera thing was a commercial. It was an Eli Manning. It was a Toyota commercial, and the audition process for that, it was like I felt nerve-wracking because I think I was still either like I just finished training. It was like late 2012, so either I just finished the first year or like somewhere in like some middle point. So I had all this stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm ready. I got this tool bag of stuff to do, and then like I got to the audition, and it was like, you know, just be yourself in that moment, and like, okay. And like in the commercial, it's like me and my wife are like, you know, arguing about this lawnmower, and I can't get it to start. And then Eli Manning shows up, and he starts it with like telekinesis, and I'm like, wow, he drives a Toyota. It's like that was like the concept of the commercial. I'm just so impressed. Not that the fact that he started the lawnmower with telekinesis, but that like, you know, he drives a Toyota. And so like the thing about it was like it's just this room. And like it's all this bombastic stuff, and I feel like everybody's going to stand in there and do the same thing, where they're going to go this, they're going to pretend that Eli Manning comes up, and then they're going to run away. So I was like, well, what am I doing? You know, like how can I commit to the action? At the very least, what am I doing? Like, I'm really trying to start this lawnmower, and I could sit here and I could just kind of mime it and pretend, but I was like, nah. So like I remember like going in, I just had this impulse like take off my belt and like wrap it around this piece of this chair, and like do it, like really do it. And I did, and like everything came out like in a real way because I was really trying to like do something. And so when the lady would like talk to me, I was like, what, you know? So it had like life, and it made it fun. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's why it worked. You know, it was just like taking that. So like having all this, I gotta do all this stuff, and then just distilling it down to like, well, just what am I doing? Because there's so much ridiculousness in here. And I remember like I mapped out like, oh, I could respond to this, and like I could say this line this way. And I was like, just do it. I think what makes this funny is what it looks like. So if I do the action, it'll work. And I feel like it worked.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Ray. Who else, Justin?
Thomas Colford, who's a brand new summer student. He's driving, so he can't come on and ask this, but I'll ask it. Thomas says, what behaviors and action do you want to see cis actors take to help advocate for trans actors on set and in the industry?
For actors, just maybe not for a while take any trans parts. And if you know any trans people, you could say, not me, maybe this person, and like give them a list of names. I started doing that just in general. When people would reach out to me, like, can you be in my play? Can you be in this thing? Like, I would feel bad saying no, but I realized like, sometimes I have to say no. I can only be in like so many places at one time. So one of the things that I do is I say, I can't do it, but here's these actors that I know that I think would be good for it, and like pass that along. So I feel like that's something that actors could do. Like if it's a paid role, there's not that many trans roles. So maybe let's stay away from that for right now, and let's advocate for people who are out and who are trans to take that role.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Let's see. Ellen Kozeritz, if you'd like to turn on your video and sound, you may.
Sure. Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing everything. I really felt like the entire time I was seeing you and hearing you and feeling you. So I can see your presence and I can feel your presence, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Ellen, just tell
my
Brian,
question-
what your relationship is to this space, and like are you a student?
Yeah.
Are you a graduate? Who are you?
So I just graduated from the 2-year program just this last month.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels good. Feels good.
Brian, 40 people graduated on Zoom, and
Yeah.
Ellen was one of them. They were rock stars. It was unbelievable.
Thank you for.
Wow.
My God, I couldn't even fathom, like trying to really process the work that we do like virtually. So, congratulations.
Thank you. It's a whole other world, and I'm really grateful that I graduated in general, but Zoom was a very special experience that I would never take away, actually. So thank you for recognizing that. My question for you is that as a trans actor and working with other trans actors recently in the film and TV industry, do you feel like you're a part of this historical movement? Because within the last 30 years, trans actors have come into surface. How do you feel being a trans actor right now? And where do you see the movement going? And where do you see trans actors in the future?
That's a great question. I feel like incredibly fortunate that this is the moment, that I feel like come to maturity as an actor, as an artist. Like I've known my whole life that this is what I wanted to do, but for, all throughout my life, I'm like, I'm not sure how, like how am I going to do this, and who am I going to be able to be, when I do this, and what's going to be available to me. And then going through a period, I had a professor tell me like, no one's ever going to see you for the stuff that you want to do. So like, why are you bringing in these things, that I want to work on? And like, so feeling like he's right, I'm never going to be seen. So can I really do this, or should I really even try? Or should I just kind of worry about, learning the behind the scenes stuff so that I can, create things, but maybe I don't get to act in this way, So, and that was 2005, so to go from that to where we are now, where I played 3 different trans men characters, and not just like, the cameo come in with some water and like, I had a botched surgery, or like any of this like kind of sensationalist like crap, like really good, really well thought out humans. It's like next level. So I definitely know that I am a part of something that is brand new, that is impactful. I mean, every day I get a message from someone, whether they're trans themselves or a parent of someone who's trans or a loved one of someone who's trans, who's like, thank you for doing this. I didn't see myself, and now I feel like I can do X, Y, and Z. So yes, I feel like it's incredible, and it is historic, and I don't know, I feel like so honored to be a part of it, and I'm so grateful that I am prepared to take it on. Like, I'm so glad that I took the time to get the training, to really show up for these roles in this moment in the way that I've been able to. And that's why I keep working and keep training, because it's like, yo, I've asked for this, I want to be able to hold it, So.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Makes me feel very hopeful. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Ellen.
Sure.
What else, Justin?
Tarek from the summer is here. Tarek, if you'd like to start your video and sound, you may.
Hi. First of all, thanks for doing this. As Justin said, this is my introduction to the studio. I'm in the first summer. And I was just wondering, in terms of the casting process for 911.
Tarek, we want you to see your eyes. Can you just tilt your device a tiny bit? You have beautiful eyes. Yes, that's better.
There he is.
Yeah.
For the process for getting cast for 911, was that character originally intended to be trans? And how did that, I mean, was that an intentional thing by the casting directors?
You know what's hilarious? Like I love those kinds of like first responder shows, and I wanted to do a series regular on it. And I'm a big fan of the original 911 show. And I was working on the L Word, and I'm like very excited about that. It's a recurring guest star role. And I'm like, this is great. But I'm like, you know, there's so much that I've come up with for this character that is just off the page that I would love to be able to like work. And like, I love this. I love theater, and I like working on and developing a character over time and whatnot. And that's what I like about like TV and series regulars. You get to develop this character over time. So I'm like, I was talking to my friend. I'm like, I really want to do a series regular. I feel like I'm like ready for that. And like, I'd love to do on like, you know, 911 or like you know, play a cop or something like that on one of these kinds of shows. And he like, it was a response to him asking me like, hey, what do you want to do? Like, what's your dream role? And I'm like explaining it to him. And I'm like, yeah, like this, like that. And, you know, but I still want to, you know, I want this character to be like trans. Like, I feel like there's still some things to kind of explore there. And like, I have this goal sheet where I like write down like what my goal is. Like one of the things I have to work on, you know, with my therapy and whatnot is like, be honest with myself about what I really want. And I felt like I was saying all of these like nice things, but that weren't really true. It was like, I really want this. So I had to get very, very specific. So I really specifically wrote out in my like goal sheet, like I want to play a trans male series regular role on an ensemble show that allows me to do this and blah, blah, blah. And I ended up booking the L Word. So I thought, oh, that's it. And so then I changed it, and I'm like, I want it to be in a action-oriented, you know, first responder type show, you know, that keeps me in LA, blah, blah, blah. And like, as soon as I answered the question to my friend, I got the email, and it's like 911 spin-off looking for black trans man, you know, well, it didn't say black, but it was like looking for a trans masculine actor, blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
So it was specifically written for a trans man. I think the character was originally described though as like, it's Midwestern, but it was like, you know, bald, no, it was like a burly, tattoo, ink sleeved and all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't have tattoos. Oh no. I was like, I just showed up, right? What was really cool about it was I did the audition, and I'm thinking I was going to have to go through the whole process. Like, I worked with Terry, and I'm like, let's do this original audition, but then I'm probably going to have to do like a series, the screen test and the camera test and all this kind of stuff, and I got to prepare for the producer session. And it's like, I did that one audition, and I booked it, and then when we came back for like the table read or whatever, they had changed the character description to me, like black, bald.
Wow.
I was like, oh. So that was like a huge moment for me where I realized, like, you know, like something was for me, like literally for me, like this is my role now, you know?
Thank you.
That's great. And I got to say, that script was not a great script. Your audition script was, we were looking for gold in the garbage can.
Yes, we were.
And we put some stuff together, and but that was not that, you know, TV writing is often not so great, but this was particularly, I don't know, I was worried.
Yeah.
But got, you know, tribute to you. You got it done.
And just like finding the truth in this thing, like finding like, okay, who am I in this moment, and like what would I really be doing in it? And I felt like that was something that I really valued about like our coaching session, because I got caught in the like first trap of you know, trying to do everything right. Like, okay, let me break it down in the right way and like get the steps. It's like, nah, okay, the script doesn't have that much meat to do all of that. So what is going on, and how do I feel about what's going on, and like what would I do in the situation, and just letting that be the through line through how we prepared it and then like how I delivered it. And I feel like that's what made it sort of work in the audition. Like I don't put on all this extra this and that. We're not doing no extra character work here. Just what is going on and how truthfully can I do this? I feel like that went such a long way.
Yeah, good for you. Thank you, Tarek, for that question. What else you got, Justin?
We have Mary Angela. If you'd like to start your video and sound, you may.
Hi. Thank you so much for doing this. So my question, I kind of have to reread it actually.
Mary Angela, tell Brian what part of the community you are here. What are you doing here?
I'm a summer student, summer intensive, first time. Really loving it. It's refreshing to also hear about like how therapy is helpful, because I see that now, and it's, you know, it's talked a lot about, and I can see how that's beneficial. And hearing how you said it's like helped you really understand who you are, ties into the question too that I had, which is like which I feel like is, I get a lot of like patience from yourself to really understand who you are. And especially right now, as the world is, especially in this country, is changing, you know, and becoming more racially aware and diversity. And, you know, like on Broadway, I know there's advocacy for more Black theater and creation, and also on TV. I wonder, for us as people of color, and because you're trans as well, you know, do you see shifts already happening now where it's not going to become, I use the word palatable, because you know how it's, you know, that becomes a thing. When we talk about our stories, it's usually still palatable to a certain perspective. And it resonated with me too, how you mentioned the reading you did, and how you were reading characters for using people of color and trans people, because most of the stories have been, you know, for non-minorities, or for minorities. You know what I mean? So just, yeah, in your experience right now, as the world is shifting, do you really see that happening for us as actors as well as writers? And then also, I kind of don't remember if you mentioned like your personal, like, are you creating work? Like, I guess I've been told before, like, well, if you can't find a script you relate to, you should write your own. And it's a little daunting, because I'm not at a place where I know who I am to share a story I want yet, but something like that.
Yeah, I think that there is a shift happening. Like, I think it was kind of happening at a snail's pace a little bit. And then there was still like a lot of like clinging to the status quo, and then like hiding it under things. Well, financially, we don't know, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not true, because look at what these shows that are casting authentically diverse characters are doing. They're making money, so get out of here with that. So I feel like we were kind of moving in that direction. And I feel like with where we are now, and the awareness that people are having, and like people trying to be actively anti-racist as opposed to just increasing diversity, I think it's a step in the right direction, but it is going to take not even integration, but just like a stepping out of the way at higher levels beyond our level as like actors. It's not just the casting thing. It also has to be like which stories are being greenlit to make it to the audiences. You know what I mean? And who's in charge of telling that story. So, you know, what Ava DuVernay is doing with her, like, started with just distribution, but she's created a whole creative campus to like train people, you know, with, you know, throughout the industry, either in front of the camera and behind the camera, so that they are prepared to tell these stories, and that they're able to bring their point of view into, you know, typically, I don't want to say mainstream, but into like what has been the mainstream right now. So like having a Kira Kelly as a director, a Demaine Davis as a director, or, you know, as a DP, of, you know, Latina female DP, you know, changes things, changes how the stories are told. Like, so there are a lot of initiatives that are happening. There's a lot of like calling in and calling out that's happening that makes me hopeful, as long as people are willing to do it and step out. I mean, like Ryan Murphy's great about it, you know. Where you know, he still keeps his fingers in things, and like everything could be better, but there are people who are like, let me put my money where my mouth is, and like step out of roles that aren't for me, or that are better suited for somebody else in this moment until things kind of level out. And then there's people who are on a executive level who need to do the same thing, who are like kind of leaning into it, but just need to like make sure that it happens. So I'm really impressed by the level of, or the number of initiatives that I'm seeing happening for writers of color and for, you know, producers of color. But it's going to take us continuously like pointing it out. Hey, this is still a problem. hey, you're hiring black directors or black writers, but they're not moving up to be showrunners. What's going on? You know.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Angela. Great question. How's your energy, Brian? You got some more in you?
I got some more. These are great questions. It's good people.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. I knew that. All right, Justin, what do you have?
Just got two left here, if we can squeeze them in. Chris Yim, if you'd like to turn on your video and your sound, you may.
Hello.
Thank you, Chris. Just tell us who you are. And
Nice to meet you, Brian. I am a first year wrapping up my first year of the 2-year conservatory and next Friday.
Nice. How many plates have you broken?
A few at home, but more due to the circumstance. Just wanted, thank you again for taking the time. I'm super moved by your how vulnerable you are and how you're exploring your edges in the pursuit of growth and the work. I'm curious about how you came across, how you came to study Meisner, and if you've seen differences in the industry with actors who are trained across different techniques and schools of thought.
Yeah, I took acting in college, right? Like I always know I wanted to act. I did like, stuff when I was a kid, like community plays, church plays, and things like that. And then, I was like, I need to get some training. And I was doing too much athletics to really get that much training in high school. By the time I got to college, I'm like, oh, great, I can major in this. But it was very musical theater based, and the training at the college. And, again, I had that professor who made me feel like maybe I shouldn't do this. So I ended up like switching. And what I was taught in those classes didn't really help me learn how to like master the performance. Like sometimes I could make something happen, other times I couldn't. And I never really felt like I had any control over like how I was performing. So I never, so then I was like, question, like, maybe I can't act, I don't know. And so I kind of, did a bunch of acting adjacent stuff for years. And then, I made the decision to move to either New York or LA because I wanted to be closer to it. And then I'm coming to New York. And while I was there, I would walk through sets and I would run into like people and they'd be like, I'm an actor. I remember I was in this bar this one time, this girl's like, I'm an actor. I was like, how are you an actor? Like, what do you do? Like, what? And she's like, okay, calm down. I'll meet me at the drama bookshop. I'll answer all your questions, blah, blah, blah. So we sat down, we talked, she gave me coffee and she answered all my questions. It was really, really a wonderful experience. Like, get this kind of guidance. And then we went to the drama bookshop and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like, the Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. This is amazing. And there's this wall of books and there's just all these books just about acting and different techniques. And I picked up Sandy Meisner's book. And then I also picked up William Esper's book and I'm reading it and I'm like, it's the way it reads is as if you are in the class and like, I'm reading it. I'm like, this is what I've been missing. Oh my God. Like, just the questions that were being presented in the book and then the way that it was being answered and how things were being broken down. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go here. And I'm like reading like, this is a real studio in New York. But I'm like, all these name real actors that I respect and admire, like going here. And I have like middle school credits on my resume. There's no way I'm going to go to this school, but I was just very drawn to it. And like the way that it was describing acting. And I carried it around for like 2 years. And I went to the website one day. I was like, I'm going to apply because I'm telling all these kids I work with at the center, to follow their dreams, don't let anything get in the way. But like, I am not doing that. So I'm going to go on this website. I'm going to apply. And if I get in, great. And if I don't, I took a step and I really tried it. And I ended up going, I did the interview and I was all like nervous. I thought I had prepared like, the audition. And I'm like, I talked to Terry about all kinds of things. And then, I thought I didn't get it because, like, I never performed. Like, he didn't even want to see me act. Like, this is terrible. And then, I ended up getting in the summer program. And it changed everything. So that's kind of what spoke to me. Just the way that it was described in the classroom, how the approach to acting, the approach to teaching was described in that book, like, really drew me to it. And then the summer program just showed me, like, this is exactly the kind of training that I need in order to unlock what I felt like was that sense of control over, like, how I perform. And when sometimes I get on set and like I'll kind of know that I'm working with another Meisner actor because they're willing to do kind of improvs. They're, we don't always necessarily do the repetition per se, but they're willing to like jam a little bit to like drop into the scene. And there's other actors who like, honestly, they don't have that. That's not their background. That's not their technique. And so what's great about Meisner is like, I don't need them to necessarily participate in what I need to do to get going. Once I get cooking, then I can work with them. So they can just do whatever they want to do. There's people who there's people I've acted with, I did not meet them until right before we started to shoot. But I felt like I was ready to jam because I knew what was going to get me going. I knew what the scene was about. And I knew what I was doing. It's like that action and that doing is like, that'll bring it home every time.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. Good question. Good question, Chris.
Yeah.
Do we have one more, Justin?
John Backstrom, if you still have a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Hi, Brian. Let me turn myself off. I'm sorry, guys. Hi, Terry.
Hi.
Thank you for all your thoughtful answers. You know, so much has resonated with me.
Tell us what you're doing here, John, before you ask the question.
Oh, yeah, of course. I just started the summer program. So.
Yes, fresh in.
Yeah. So going back to the topic of the revolution, it's a conversation that's been happening is about the role of law enforcement in our communities, in our country, their historic purpose. You know, a lot of people are becoming abolitionists or keen to the idea of at least defunding the police and looking at the role they play, right? Like, how do they respond to things? What do they respond to? What services are we actually providing to people? And I'm just curious if that, working on a show like a 911 show, you know, that represents something that's tied to that, right? Like, has that conversation happened? You know, I know this is something that like you aren't responsible for, but I'm just curious if that has been like,
oh, it's been on my mind, for sure, especially for like me as someone who's like cut their teeth on like law enforcement roles, and like as the young person growing up, just really into like those kinds of television shows. Like I'm like, well, what is it about that like really draws me into these kinds of shows? And like, and it's like usually because it's some human who's trying very hard to do the right thing, and everything's murky and gray, and like, you know, maybe they don't make the right choice. And so that, to me, that question of like, you know, how you're like one bad choice away from being a bad guy and one good choice away from being a good guy, I really like that dynamic and that sort of exploration. So for me, like, I had to like kind of understand that myself, because like, yo, what am I promoting here as a black man? You know, like being these cops, and usually in these shows, you know, sometimes where the relationship between the cops and the community is like so problematic. And like, again, it's reinforcing these stereotypes that, you know, all the criminals are, you know, black and Latino, and, you know, all the cops are like these good white guys who are like trying to do the right thing, you know, and it's at our expense, basically. So like, how have I participated in that? And when I was starting out early on, I was like, well, if I'm going to be in these cop shows, I want to be, you know, the good guy. I want to show that. I want to bring this blackness in my experience to that. And I don't want to be playing like the criminals. So like, that was kind of like a strategic thing, you know, early on, because I knew I wanted to be in that world. And as I've, you know, been able to do it, the police and the law enforcement officers that I've been able to play represent what I want to see in law enforcement, and what I want to see in this world. Like Twan on Queen Sugar, he's a black police officer down in Louisiana, and I feel like, you know, for that character, he wanted to do that because of how police had shown up in his community. And so he wants to show up in the community in the way that is protective, and so he can be within the police force, checking that racism and that, you know, that oppressiveness that can show up in police, and like humanizing black people. Because, you know, a lot of what happens with, you know, police brutality is like they dehumanize it. You know, a lot of what they are taught in the academy, when they get with the veteran, they get paired with that vet. The vet is like, throw all that shit out, and this is what it's going to be. Everybody is scum, and if you want to get home to your family, this is what you got to do, and you can't look out for 1 minute, and you got to, you know, protect. And it's like, that's the attitude that causes so much, you know, death and destruction and violence and distrust within the community. So as a character, I wanted to play a character who is countering that, like with you know, on the inside. And so I was able to do that with that character. And I feel like with, you know, 911, it's like we're playing firefighters. So even though we're interacting with police, you know, we're still, you know, playing civil servants. But again, here we're showing like there's all kinds of people who feel this call to protect and to serve. And the way that it is playing out in this country right now, or actually the whole time, that protect and to serve seems to only be reserved for certain people. And like, we need to do something about that. And we need to reevaluate what law enforcement is, you know what I mean? And how it's carried out. And do we need law enforcement officers showing up for, you know, emotionally disturbed people, for domestic violence situations? No, not necessarily. And I think for me, when I say defund the police, I'm talking about spreading the resources that we are putting disproportionately to police and the police force, and spreading it into things that combat crime from the beginning, like education and after school programs and mental health services and all the things that have been cut, which is why there's been a proliferation of poverty and crime and things like that. So when I say defund the police, that's what I'm talking about. When I say abolish the police, when people talk about abolish police, I think they're talking about historically and how the police have shown up and how they've been used and how they've been operating. I think there still has to be some form of law enforcement, but we need to reimagine what that looks like and how it's being used. And we can't do it unless we call for it. And if we use, like people are like, you know, use different language. Don't say abolish, don't say defund. Like, no, say it because it got your attention. And it's actually kind of what needs to happen.
And that is Brian Micheal, my friends. That is a man who, thank you, John, for that question, who lays it out. Thank you for that. Wow. I just have a question in the chat, which is like a little tag on Christium, who just asked you a question before. It wants to know about what you're reading and the books that are inspiring you.
Ooh.
And that could also be music. That could be whatever is really, what do you get to, Lizzie Twinning, who was your classmate, who says she remembers the spreadsheet. Now I want to see that spreadsheet. But
oh man, I want a copy, Brian.
Yeah.
Well, spreadsheet is intense, yo. It's good. It's helped me stay focused. As like,
yeah.
Well, I'll show it to you. It's great. What am I reading? I'm reading You Are a Badass was one of the things I read early on.
Jen Sincero.
Yeah, and then I read The Gifts of Imperfection. Like we did like a virtual family book club to read by Brene Brown. I'm reading some like crime novel. This like I think it's a James Patterson crime novel, Big Bad Luck and Trouble. Just because I like those kinds of stories, and like the way that he describes I love the descriptions of the locations and like the mindset of the characters, which is like, you know, when you read a script, they don't want to put that much in there, so you kind of lose some of that. So it's been really cool to like go back to like just reading like fiction in that way. But those are the two that I've been primarily reading. My next one is Stories That Stick by Brene Brown as well. And then Thomas Page McBee is a trans writer. He's a screenwriter. He actually worked on The L Word. And
Thomas what?
Page McBee.
And what did he write?
Amateur. And it's a really good meditation on like masculinity, his relationship to masculinity and violence. And I think it's like really cool. I was working on this like op-ed, and like, you know, I was talking about like how we're limiting ourselves. Like Hollywood has this limited imagination when it comes to trans actors, especially trans men. Like they don't even think about us. And when they do, it's like maybe for like a specifically trans part. But like if you really think about, you know, when you ask a man to describe masculinity, or someone who's never really had to question it, it's like asking a fish to describe water, you know, or, you know, asking a worm to describe the earth. But, you know, if you talk to a frog, you know, we could talk about both and how they interplay with each other, how they're interconnected, and, you know, give you some more perspective and how that's kind of missing, you know. So I think Thomas's book is like a great study on that for anybody to read, whether you're trans or not, you know, especially when it comes to looking at masculinity.
Great. Any closing words of inspiration for us, Brian? This has been a terrific event for me and for all of us. What's coming up for you? What projects are you going to be getting back to? And can you share any secrets?
Yeah, no, we got season 2 for Lone Stars coming up, so I'm looking forward to that. And you know, I've had some virtual auditions for some things, but I kind of did those more for practice than like I actually want to take those parts. It was just I want to practice. But that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And like, while I got the time now and I feel like I've ingested a lot, I kind of want to get back to writing. So it's like, I think we're going to have a little more time before we get back to shooting. So I'm like, maybe I can take this moment to write a little bit more.
That's great. That's great. Well, on behalf of my studio, my faculty, my staff, and all the lucky people who are here tonight, and you guys can unmute again. I want to thank you, Brian, Micheal, so much for giving us your time, your heart, your wisdom, your passion. You've just been really made my night. Thank you so much.
Thank you, honey. We love you.
Love you, Brian.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
so much, Brian.
Thank you.
Now, before people go, Justin, do you have a proposition for folks?
Yes, I'll write it in the chat as well. But if you enjoyed your experience tonight, you can share on social media. Our amazing social media manager, Emma, tells me use the hashtag TKActorTalk. I'll put it right now in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Terry.
Yeah, thank you all so much. Maybe you all can show your video again so we can just see all the faces and Brian can see who is here. That would be nice. Yeah, there's Lizzie.
Oh, look at these beautiful faces. What's up?
That's amazing.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much, guys. That was amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
So incredibly
Amazing, Brian.
inspiring. Love you
Amazing.
so much, Brian.
Yeah,
You're amazing.
that's great. And I look forward to seeing you in the Rio, Brian.
Yeah, baby.
All right. And thank you all. Thanks so much.
Terry.
Take care, everybody.